So yeah, I mean, like, let's see. To start, let's see. I think sophomore year, the summer between freshman and sophomore year, was the first time I ever smoked weed and or got high. You know, I smoked it a couple times, and then the first couple you don't get it. And then a friend of mine and I smoked some, and it was like the best thing ever, right? It was like everything was weird and strange, but not in like a drunk way. We'd all been drinking in high school, like we'd all been drinking for a while, but this was different. This was like I don't feel like I'm gonna throw up. I feel like I'm seeing things, man, and like
Hmm.
the it was at night, and we walked from where we did it under this bridge to like McDonald's and just laughed our ass off for hours, like that laugh where you can't stop laughing, and and then the cop that's always like sitting in McDonald's like walks by us and looks weird, and
The
we're like
giggles.
we're all like, and it was so like that, I bring that up because I think it's an interesting precursor to the actual first experience I had with psychedelics, which was mushrooms, not LSD. And I'm glad it was mushrooms because I don't know if I would have been ready for LSD at that point. But so that sophomore year goes, and then it was like towards the end of the summer of between sophomore and junior year, and the friends that I had, they had all older brothers who had access to this kind of stuff, and it was the same, kind of similar situation where they're like, hey, we have some mushrooms, you want to do some? I'm like, what's that? I always heard of LSD, but I didn't know. And they're like, well, it's like LSD, but it's not as hardcore, and so we did get a little background. I mean, basically from the brothers, the
Hmm.
older brothers that tell them like what it is. But so I was like, all right, well, let's do it. So we went out to this place called Browns Lake, which is just north of the city I grew up in. It's kind of out in the woods a little bit, and it was a pretty like a really nice warm summer evening, and sun was going down, and they're like, okay, here, and it was like I think it was like a little tiny cap, and then like a little stem, so it wasn't anything too big. And they're like, well, it's not going to taste very good. We didn't have any juice or water or anything like that. It was just eat it. So I'm sitting there chewing on it. I'm like, this tastes like shit. They're like, well, let me tell you, it is shit. It's probably cow shit. It was grown under cow shit or something like that. And I'm just like, oh. And so it's I got through that and kind of chewed on it and gnawed on it a little bit, and maybe I had a beer. I don't know. I don't to wash it down, but um, it's one of those things, like you said, like with the LSD, it's like it doesn't hit you right away, and but this wasn't like gonna be a super intense thing like I have had on mushrooms before. After that, this was a little less, right? Because I probably didn't take very much, right? It was probably like a half of a really good dose that you would take. So I just remember we started walking on this path that went down into like it's kind of we're at the top of a hill. It's all grassy and trees, and it's very green in Iowa. And so the sun was going down and everything was starting to the colors of the sunset on the green trees, were just becoming like really different than anything I'd ever experienced. And I mean, I could tell like something was happening that was different than even like smoking marijuana. And is the body feeling that you get with it. I didn't have any like the heavy body feeling. It was more light.
Hmm.
This
Hmm.
was a lighter feeling, and it was just real like I don't know, it just felt like a warm water caressing all of my joints and everything, like where I just felt kind of rubbery, and I was able to move like really fluidly, and I didn't feel like any, I wasn't feeling any pain. And so we walked down this little path, and it was just like, you start to have the sense of, like, okay, there's going to be things or, some hallucinations. And I was expecting to see like little creatures and, like a monster or a dragon or something, but it's like, no, it's really just the leaves and everything were moving differently, and
Hmm.
everything was kind of coming together Um, but I noticed that my mind was working differently. Like I was thinking of things in a way that I hadn't before. I was connecting dots that I hadn't before. And then when I would say what I was thinking about, it would come out really lucidly. It wasn't like I was trying to fumble for words or something. And I remember looking up, and there, I mean, I don't know if this was the hallucination or just the way that everything was at the time, but there were some clouds in the sky, and I swore I was looking up and I could see the moon, like it was sort of high in the sky, and then there were these rings of clouds, like concentric rings around it, going down like this, like getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was like, man, it looks like, like getting all trippy. I was like, it looks like I'm looking up into the rib cage of an ancient being, and the moon is the brain, and everybody's like, whoa, like, and I was just realizing, like, man, I'm really seeing things in a different way here. Like this just feels like there's a freedom there that I wasn't getting with anything else. But again, like I said, like what it was making me realize was that it was connecting something in my brain. It was connecting thoughts and feelings and making me feel like I was seeing the world for the first time in a different way, and it was obviously a different way, but it was like I was feeling a connection between my brain and like everyone else that I was with. And I felt like a connection with nature, and like it was all like kind of that, everything is one. And by that time we were all really big into reggae and different kinds, and the Grateful Dead, and we were listening to a lot of that music, and it was that like the one world. I was like, oh yeah, man, this is what they're talking about. Like everything, this oneness and this connection that we all have. And then so we were there for a couple hours, and then we drove back into town and went to a friend's house, and we're in his basement, and I was just everything was just I don't know how to describe it, but it felt so good. It felt so calm, and like I wasn't, it was, I guess I was relieved maybe or something. Maybe I was relieved by how good it felt, because I was thinking like, oh, you're going to trip. You're going to be like, "Ah," watching, after watching like, Cheech and Chong movies, you'd think everything's like, you're going to end up in a straitjacket, in a mental institution or something. But, it wasn't like that at all. It was like, I felt in complete control. And, after 3, 4 hours, it starts to kind of ease off a little bit. And then you even feel even more like a sense of well-being and the ability to converse with people in a way that you hadn't done before, which was just like, we're high school kids and we're sitting here having these deep conversations about things, just off the top of our head. And, everybody's accepting everything everybody's saying, and we're like kind of connected together that way. And it was just, man, I'll tell you, it was like, I went home that night, and how even though you're not like completely, still going on it after you've gone home, you're still feeling it. And I was like in my room, just like, God, this is so great. I wish I could like feel like this like every day. And of course you don't ultimately,
Nah, you don't want that. Sure.
but, yeah. So, I mean, after that, it was there were a series of a few of those events, but, I think of what it did for me, whereas for you, it was kind of like, why didn't anybody tell me about this? Cause I already had in my mind that, my friends and I were doing things that like most people don't do, even other kids our age. Most kids weren't like smoking weed all the time, or, into music and playing music. And, I knew my parents certainly didn't. They were, pretty straightforward type, square type people. Brothers and sisters weren't like that. They were drinkers. So I already knew that I was sort of doing something that was, out there, but it was like, I wasn't scared by that notion. I was like ready for that. I wanted there to be, I wanted to experience these things, like cause my heroes all did, like my hero at the time was Jimi Hendrix, and Jimi Hendrix was well known for taking a lot of psychedelics. So I was like, man, I want to experience that and see what that's like, and see if I can play like that, and blah, blah, blah. But so, I mean, what it was more of a sense of affirmation of like, what you're doing is okay. This isn't like, you're not going to go out and do something crazy here. This isn't something you're doing as like a party drug. It's not like, let's go party, man, and do some shrooms
Mm-hmm.
and get wasted. It's like, we didn't really do things like that. We really saw like the sort of the spiritual nature of it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that you and I have touched on before, is that, and you said it to me once too, and I think that that's kind of what maybe triggered it for me, was you're like, man, I don't do this to get fucked up. I don't do this to like
Mm-hmm.
get crazy and party. It's like, you take it, it's like a sacred sacrament, like you said. So, you know, that was my first experience, and it was, again, it was a life changer in the sense that it kind of like affirmed some of the things I was thinking about anyways. And it also kind of, drove me a little bit further away from that square life that people expect you
Mm-hmm.
to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me like feel like okay to not want to be part of that, which I guess was like the big awakening for me, was realizing that it was okay that I didn't want to go to college right after high school. And I wasn't feeling like I was going to do that, and or was ready for that.